You've seen Mike Wolfe dig through barns, crawl under porches, and squeeze into collapsing garages all across America. American pickers made him a household name, capturing the thrill of the hunt as he and his crew uncovered forgotten relics from coast to coast. Cameras followed him into the dust and rust. Each find a time capsule, each negotiation a dance of history and value. But what if we told you the best stuff? The rarest pieces? The ones that really mattered? They weren't on the show. They were never meant to be. Because while viewers got to see what Mike bought for antique archaeology, what was restored, sold, or displayed, there was a separate collection he never spoke about on camera. A personal vault, a stash of artifacts too valuable, too controversial, or simply too meaningful to share with the world. What's inside? Only a select few know for sure. But whispers from former crew members and Nashville insiders tell of a locked room, unmarked, unfilmed, and untouched by public eyes. It sits behind his well-known storefront in Tennessee. And behind that door, a museum's worth of hand-picked history. These are the items Mike didn't buy for business. He bought them for something more, for what they represent, for what they remind him of, for who they once belonged to. They're the stories that don't fit a 30-minute runtime, the pieces too real for reality TV. And what makes it even more powerful is this: he never bragged, never flaunted, never invited a film crew in. He kept it private for a reason. Because sometimes the most powerful treasures aren't the ones you sell. They're the ones you keep hidden until the story finally demands to be told. And that's where this story begins. Tucked behind the showroom lights of antique archaeology lies something few fans know exists. A door, unmarked, steel, locked at all times. Behind it, what insiders call the vault. No guided tours, no selfies, no TV crews. Mike Wolfe didn't build this room for show. He built it to protect something sacred, his private archive of American history. According to staff who've worked closely with Wolfe, the collection includes some of the rarest motorcycles, neon signs, road artifacts, and pre-War II oddities that would put entire museums to shame. But what's most shocking is what's never been made public: a pre-production 1909 Indian twin. One of the only remaining models with hand-stamped factory tags. A Von Dutch custom that vanished for decades before resurfacing in Wolfe's hands. Not restored, preserved exactly as it was found. A full section of a 1920s Route 66 diner booth, complete with original menus and a functional jukebox. Not for display, just for reflection. And, perhaps most astonishing, a military trunk filled with unopened letters from World War I, salvaged from a condemned post office in Illinois, still sealed, their contents never read. But why does Mike keep this all private? Because he believes not everything belongs in a display case. Some things, he says, deserve to rest in peace. To him, these are more than collectibles. They're pieces of people's lives, moments frozen in time. It's not about bragging rights or flexing wealth. It's about stewardship. And in Mike Wolfe's vault, history doesn't just live, it's protected. For all his business savvy, Mike Wolfe has made one thing clear over the years. Some things are not for sale. These are the items with stories so personal, so emotionally powerful, that putting a price tag on them would feel wrong. Take, for instance, the first bicycle Mike ever restored, a rusted-out 1940s Schwinn he salvaged from a junkyard as a teenager. Today, it hangs above his workbench, untouched by TV lights. He credits that bike with starting it all. Or the military jacket found in the wall of a farmhouse, with a handwritten letter tucked in the breast pocket. The letter, dated 1943, was never mailed. Mike has never revealed its contents, only saying, "It felt like I was holding someone's final words." Another artifact, perhaps the most haunting, is a blood-stained bandana from a Prohibition-era shootout, reportedly retrieved from the floorboards of a bootlegger's hideout. Mike keeps it in a shadow box under glass, no label, no caption. "Some things," he said, "tell their own story without me saying a word." These aren't just historical oddities, they're emotional anchors, reminders that behind every antique is a person, a life, a loss, a legacy. This is why Mike keeps them locked away. Not to hoard, but to honor. In the age of content creators and curated lives, Mike Wolfe made a choice most wouldn't: to keep his most valuable treasures off camera. It's not about privacy for the sake of mystery. It's about reverence. Mike has explained that once something is filmed, posted, or shared, it's no longer his alone. "The moment you turn it into content," he once said, "you change what it means." And for the pieces in his private vault, changing their meaning is the one thing he refuses to do. There's also the issue of security. According to several sources close to Wolfe's Nashville operation, there have been attempted break-ins. At least one incident involved a would-be thief trying to breach the outer perimeter of his private garage. No press coverage, no arrests made, but the message was clear: some treasures are too tempting. He's also been offered insane amounts of money. Collectors from Japan, Germany, and Dubai have approached him with blank checks for items he won't even confirm owning. But the answer is always the same: it's not for sale. Because for Mike Wolfe, being a picker was never about getting rich. It was about remembering the past. And some memories are too sacred to share. While American Pickers has shown its fair share of incredible finds, not every deal Mike Wolfe makes ends up on camera. In fact, some of his most legendary acquisitions have happened in total secrecy, with no cameras, no witnesses, and no disclosure. Why? Because these aren't just television moments. They're private agreements based on trust. According to multiple insiders, Mike has long maintained a quiet network of retired collectors, farmers, and families with estates full of irreplaceable Americana. Many of them, distrustful of outsiders or turned off by reality TV, will only deal with Mike personally, off the books. There's the case of the 1913 Harley-board track racer, never shown on the show, said to have been purchased directly from a dying man's will, passed down from a grandfather who once raced it at county fairs. No paperwork, no footage, just a handshake and a promise to preserve it. Another involves a 1960s neon sign salvaged from a Route 66 motel, removed under cover of night by the original owner's grandson, who asked Mike to keep it private out of family disputes over the property. Wolfe reportedly stores it in a sealed unit, unlit, waiting for the right moment to restore it respectfully. These are not just pics. They are quiet moments of cultural rescue. And to Mike, broadcasting them would feel like exploitation. Because when someone gives you a piece of their past, you don't flip it for views. Some items in Wolfe's hidden collection are intentionally kept out of public view, not because they're controversial or too valuable, but because they carry a weight that can't be captured on camera. Insiders refer to this as the ghost collection, a handful of deeply personal artifacts that, for reasons of emotion or loss, Mike refuses to showcase. One example is a 1940s mining helmet, charred and partially melted, found at a collapsed shaft in West Virginia. It belonged to a miner who died during a cave-in, discovered decades later among the rubble of an old supply shack. Wolfe acquired it during an off-air trip in 2016 and keeps it wrapped in cloth, stored behind a steel door. Another piece, rarely spoken of, is a set of wedding rings found in an abandoned house in Tennessee, accompanied by a photo of a young couple from the 1920s. The rings had been tucked into a sock drawer, never worn again after what neighbors believed was a tragic car accident. Mike keeps them not as curiosities, but as reminders of lives cut short, of dreams half-lived, of time that never gave a second chance. He doesn't post about these, he doesn't boast. Because some items aren't about history, they're about heartbreak. While Mike Wolfe keeps his public life tightly managed, there's one person who has full access to everything: the vault, the ghost collection, the secrets behind every pick. His daughter, Charlie. From an early age, Charlie showed the same fascination with the past that Mike did. She'd travel with him to lesser-known locations, sometimes joining him on low-key pics, far from the spotlight. And in doing so, she became the silent heir to his hidden archive. Sources close to the Wolfe family say Mike has already begun documenting and cataloging the rarest parts of his collection for Charlie. Not for profit, but for preservation. He reportedly calls it his legacy box, a long-term effort to ensure every item's story survives long after he's gone. This includes handwritten letters describing where each artifact came from, personal journal entries detailing emotional pickups, a sealed video message not yet released, where Mike speaks directly to his daughter about why he started collecting in the first place. What's most telling is this: Mike doesn't care if the world never sees these things. He cares that Charlie knows, because someday, when the cameras are gone and the doors close for good, she'll be the one standing in that vault, surrounded not by antiques, but by stories. And to Mike Wolfe, that's all that's ever mattered. Even in a world of million-dollar auctions and collectors with deep pockets, some treasures aren't for sale. And Mike Wolfe has made that clear more than once. In interviews, he's often said, "I've had people offer me crazy money for stuff I wouldn't even consider selling." It's not about the number, it's about the story. So what are these non-negotiable pieces? One is a fully unrestored 1912 Indian board track racer, reportedly one of only a handful left in the world. Mike found it in a crumbling barn outside Peoria, Illinois, buried under hay and chicken wire. The original owner's family said it hadn't been started since 1929. It's now stored in Wolfe's temperature-controlled archive, covered with a tarp and tagged "Never for Sale." Another item? A pair of brass-trimmed leather saddlebags from a 1940s Harley-Davidson, given to him by a World War II veteran who used the bike to ride cross-country after returning home. That vet passed away 2 months later. Buyers have offered him 6 figures. Mike won't even take the call, because these aren't just relics, they're promises. He doesn't flip them, he doesn't flaunt them, he protects them, not because of what they're worth, but because of who they once meant everything to. So why keep these stories hidden? Why not make a documentary? Open a museum? Share it with the world? According to those closest to him, Mike Wolfe has thought about it. He's had offers, big ones. Several networks have pitched spin-offs. One collector even offered to bankroll a Wolfe-curated museum in Nashville. But Mike always declines, because for him, these treasures aren't entertainment. They're sacred spaces. He worries that turning it into a business would taint what he's built. That if he opened the doors, the reverence would vanish. He once said, "Not everything needs to be put behind glass. Some things are meant to be remembered quietly." It's not a vault. It's not a showroom. It's a cathedral of memory. And Mike Wolfe is its lone keeper. For now, the world will have to be content with the surface. Because the heart of his collection? It's staying in the shadows. We've seen the pics. We've heard the stories. But what Mike Wolfe has held back may be the most important pick of all. Not for the money, not for the cameras, but for history itself. In a world that races to the next trend, he's one of the few slowing down, preserving the past one forgotten piece at a time. The items in that vault? They aren't just antiques. They're memories that refuse to die. And thanks to Mike Wolfe, they never will.